This is a short video to review the Pythagorean theorem before we move on to the trig ratios. Now, the Pythagorean theorem is based on a right triangle and only a right triangle. It's very important that you be careful whenever using the Pythagorean theorem to make sure that you are using a right triangle. And again, a right triangle is defined by the fact that you have a right angle or a 90-degree angle as one of your angles within the triangle. The side opposite to this 90-degree angle is what we call the hypotenuse, and then we call the other two sides just side A and side B. Something else to point out here is that angle A is opposite side A, angle B is opposite side B, and angle C, the 90-degree angle, is always opposite the hypotenuse. The Pythagorean theorem states that if you have a right triangle, then if you square side A and add it to the square of side B, then this will equal the square of the hypotenuse. Now, there are several numbers that fit into this nicely, but most of the time we end up getting decimals. Just to kind of give you a few examples of some of the numbers that fit nicely, which are referred to as Pythagorean triples. So these are whole numbers that fit into the Pythagorean theorem and produce other whole numbers. You can have A be 3, B 4, and C 5 is one Pythagorean triple that's very common. Another one is 5, 12, 13. Again, A, B, and C. C, your hypotenuse, is always the longest side. So this is a way that we can check to make sure that we have everything correct, as if your hypotenuse is the correct side. Now, let's do a few examples. If we want to find the length of the hypotenuse in a right triangle, we're given side B is 134 meters and side A is 110 meters. Now we would plug this into our formula. We would say that A is 110 squared and B is 134 squared, and we want to find C, our hypotenuse, squared. So we would do this calculation and take a second to put this into your calculator. 110 squared plus 134 squared. You should end up with 30,056, still equal to C squared. And then we want to take the square root of this number to find C. So in this case, C ends up being approximately 100, and I'm going to put the approximate symbol here, 173.37. And our units in this case were meters, so we always want to make sure that we include our units. So we can also find the length of a side given the hypotenuse in another side. We have to be very careful here to make sure that we follow our order of operations. If we plug everything in here, we're given side B is 36.4, the hypotenuse is 47.3. So we would say we're going to find A squared plus B is 36.4, and we're going to square that, and this is equal to 47.3 squared. So if we go through, we find 36.4 squared. We have A squared plus 1324.96 is equal to 47.3 squared is 2237.29, and this is where we need to be very careful to make sure that we subtract over this 1324.96, because in this case we would have the hypotenuse squared minus B squared. So in this case we end up with A squared is equal to 912.33, And then again, we take the square root of both sides, and we end up with A being approximately 30.2 units, in this case, centimeters. So that's a quick review of the Pythagorean theorem. The next video will introduce the trig ratios.